ultimately there is so much room for everybody. If there's room for like 17 Chris's in Marvel Studios, then there's room for like 3 non-binary people. Like, it would not be hard.
Hey there, beautiful people. Welcome back to EW's Untold Stories Beyond the Binary. I'm your host, Tre'vell Anderson, and on this, our 4th and final episode of this limited series all about non-binary visibility, we're looking toward the future, toward a promised land on the horizon where our non-binary brilliance is regarded as just that. Brilliant and excellent and divine and fabulous and necessary and so much more beyond that. Here are some of my faves describing the uniqueness of our outlooks on the world as non-binary people, as well as the inclusive and affirming futures we're going to make happen.
I think that once trans people learn that they get to question the gender that they were assigned or the gender roles that they were assigned or the body that they were given, they realize that everything is up for interrogation. And so you get to explore all sorts of other things that you maybe took for granted in a society and say, are these serving me? Are these serving members of my community? And if not, how can we reimagine those things to better serve people who are most vulnerable? And that can look like prison abolition, that can look like mutual aid, that can look like non-monogamy, that can look like so many different things that we're all interrogating and just saying what does work for us.
Well, I talk sometimes about being a walking metaphor. And I think people can see immediately, what I was told my whole life is wrong with me. The thing that people hated me deeply for, they can just see it. And they can also see that it's something I love, that I have worked hard and that I love it, that I celebrate it, that I wear it with pride. And so I hope that people can plug into the thing they were taught is wrong with them and begin to wear that thing as a superpower, as something that brings them pride. Yeah.
I think that the non-binary gaze allows us to see the world from angles that some people are limited. You can only see it from one direction, then you're missing all the beauty going on. Like, if you can only see it from this direction, you're missing all the beauty around here. And being non-binary feels like a head on a swivel, like, oh, it's over here. Oh, I get to look at this too? Really? I can turn around?
You know, we engage with the world through a set of pretty rigid, gendered expectations and are expected to fit into sort of gendered boxes that I think also really hurt cis people as well. So the idea that a cis woman who grows facial hair, like, that is a point of shame and that is something that needs to be addressed in some way. But to know that women can have facial hair, that is something that sort of, like, I think has such a positive, overall effect just on the world, on how we see these gendered markers. And I really do think that, like, if we can expand our thinking of what gender is and how it can be engaged with and how it is fluid and how it is malleable, not only will that make the world a kinder place for trans people to exist and come out and grow and thrive, but it will also create a gentler world for cis people as well.
Well, for me, it's about opening up your mind to living outside of the social construct. And I think that, there are these lyrics from this song by Mika. It's called Promised Land. It was like, I was born in that summer when the sun didn't shine. I was given a name that doesn't feel like it's mine. Look, my life is the good boy I was told I should be. Prayed every night to a religion that was chosen for me. And I think about that a lot. And, as I've been able to strip away a lot of my socialization through religion, through sexual identity, through gender identity, gender expression, I've been able to find a happiness and a real resilience that I didn't know I could even achieve.
So much of our current culture, our popular culture, has been informed by gender expansive people. the fact that keeps getting brushed aside means that we don't have a full understanding of the world that we're living in, of the ideas that we're breathing daily. I was just watching, someone had cut together all of these interviews with Little Richard. I didn't realize that he had been discovered by Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who essentially invented rock and roll. She was queer, she's black, and taking music from church and playing it on a stage, sort of in a secular way. I mean, she invented that, and she discovered him, and he is clearly a gender expansive person. And you can see over the years in these various interviews, his way of discussing himself even changes. But when you think about the fact that this is where rock and roll originated from, not just to be able to see the world through a non-binary lens, but I think also to be able to look at this world and our history through like an anti-racist lens. If you don't do that, then you're sort of sleepwalking through our reality.
So for me, non-binary is healing because it's the ability to hold multiple truths at the same time. And that's what my understanding of what healing is that things don't necessarily have to exist in opposition, they can exist in tandem. And so I bring that sensibility to everything, that sometimes it's possible to hold both levity and gravity. So funny humor can be a place of processing extreme, powerful grief. And to aesthetics, that actually glamour can come from the kind of grit of having to navigate a New York City subway like you own it because everyone hates your guts. That's where fashion begins. And in fact, that's where high fashion begins, right? So I think in non-binary life is a refusal of the distinctions between high culture, low culture, the distinctions between pop culture, fringe culture, and an insistence on the interconnectivity of everything.
Gender wouldn't exist, not because non-binary people are taking over the world, but gender as a construct would just go out the window. And yes, maybe men and women could exist, but it's not a conversation that we need to have.
I think that it is degendering the Oscars. I think it is, gender neutralizing public spaces. I think that it is not questioning a little boy when he wants a Barbie doll and him not feeling weird about asking for it. That all seems pretty on point to me.
I think ultimately it'll be about breaking down the idea that we are a risk. Like I'm tired of being told that casting me is too risky. Like I'm just tired of it. Because from my perspective, specifically in Hollywood, but kind of everywhere too, non-binary people are the future. That in a big way, especially in Hollywood, we can do more than everyone else. We can quite literally do double the amount of roles as everybody else. So how is this not better? Like, I can mask it up, like, give me 5 minutes, and I can do whatever you want.
You did it, Sue! Wow! No way Coach Craven doesn't let you on the team now!
Actually, guys, it's Theo now.
Theo?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Bringing our creativity and bringing our knowledge and our nuances to, especially to the stage and to film, couldn't possibly be a bad thing. And I think that's something that we're still getting past right now, where it's seen as like, well, I guess we'll throw in like one, to appease social media, to appease them, so we don't get canceled. But ultimately, I think there's going to be a switch that gets flipped. And then I think in doing that, we'll break down the sort of idea that, like, there can only be one. Like, I know I've dealt with a lot of like competition and kind of like infighting with queer communities because of society, because of Hollywood. We've been told that like there's only room for one, and that's such a weird thing to navigate as an actor, and that's such a weird space to navigate, because ultimately there is so much room for everybody. If there's room for like 17 Chris's in Marvel Studios, then there's room for like 3 non-binary people. Like, it would not be hard.
And that's why it kind of frustrates me that the framing becomes that we are suffering because Hollywood and media are excluding us. Like, yes, obviously. But they're suffering because they continue to regurgitate the most abysmally boring narratives as if it's fresh and original, when there could be so much vitality, intention, purpose, and rigor if you actually had people like Tre'vell there, you know? And it's not, don't include us just because of the aesthetic sort of rubric of checking off a box of being like, we have these kind of diverse people. Include us because the imagination that we bring, the approach that we have to the world, will fundamentally shift any project, not just projects that are related to gender.
And I also just hope, too, that the future of non-binary visibility looks like me having my own production company that's really going well, where I'm like, you know, so powerful I'd probably become a problem, right? Like, because that's how Hollywood goes. You know, people they get so much control that then they get like detached and stop making quality stuff. Like, I hope that like I get to that position, but that it's not just me, right? That there's like 7 other trans folks who have their empires or whatever of like content who are all like cattily competing against each other, but also secretly all just buddies behind. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make it in that way, but I don't want to make it that way alone. I want us to ascend together. I want companionship, and I want multiple people. Like, we need to have multiple trans executives at multiple networks vying for the same show. We need to have multiple trans creators trying to approach multiple like trans actors for their projects, right? You can't book your one trans actor that you really want to book because that other non-binary creator books them for their cool thing, right? Like, we need that kind of overlap and competition in the same way that cis people have in Hollywood all the time. Like, I want that.
And there we have it, beautiful people. We've come to the end of Untold Stories Beyond the Binary. If you haven't checked out the podcast version of this series yet, what are you waiting on? Okay, more extended conversations and reflections from my council of non-binary fabulousness awaits you. It's available wherever you get Slay-worthy audio. I'm Tre'vell Anderson. Thank you so much for watching, and slay on.